Ebony Harris stood at the entrance of Golden Mirage Casino, her black security uniform, crisp despite the late hour. At 38, her sharp eyes scanned the flood of Las Vegas revelers, tourists in sequins, high rollers in tuxes, moving past her like she was part of the decor. Tonight, February 25, 2025, was another long shift, her radio crackling with orders from Richard Voss, the casino's senior manager. "Keep the riffraff out, Harris," he'd barked earlier, his voice a constant jab. She adjusted her stance, ignoring the ache in her legs from hours on her feet. To Voss and the staff, she was just the guard, a nobody in a sea of glitz. But tonight, a letter waited at home, a card about to change the game. Earlier that day, Ebony had patrolled the casino floor, her presence a quiet deterrent amid the clatter of slots and cheers at the tables. Voss had caught her near the VIP lounge, his smirk instant. "Don't trip over your boots, Harris," he'd sneered, staff chuckling as he waved her off. She'd kept her cool, her voice low. "Just doing my job," but the taunt stung. 12 years at Golden Mirage, and she was still a punchline. Her pay docked for petty reasons, her shifts stretched by Voss's whims. She'd grown used to it, the sidelong glances, the assumption she was less. But a flicker of something new stirred, a hint of a shift. Back at her modest apartment near the Strip, Ebony sank into a worn chair. Her radio silent at last. She'd grown up in Oakland, her mother a maid who'd scraped by. Her stepfather, Frank Lucky Malone, a gambler who'd taken her in after her mom's death. Frank had taught her cards, vigilance, the art of watching without being seen. "You're tougher than this town," he'd say. His gravelly laugh a comfort. She'd moved to Vegas, working security to pay bills, her dreams buried under survival. Golden Mirage was her life. Until now. A letter waited, a spark in the dark. Exhaustion tugged as Ebony tossed her keys on the table. A scratched hand-me-down. An envelope caught her eye. No stamp, just her name in bold ink. Curiosity beat weariness as she tore it open. Inside were 2 sheets, a legal document, thick with text, and a handwritten note. Her breath caught as she read, "Ebony, my sharp-eyed girl, the Mirage is yours now. Lucky." Frank Malone, the casino kingpin who died last month, had left her something. The document was his will, naming Ebony Harris sole heir to Golden Mirage Casino. She slumped back, hands trembling. This wasn't just a job, it was her jackpot. Sleep eluded Ebony as the will glowed under a dim lamp, its words a bet she'd never placed. Frank had been her rock, a rough man who'd built Golden Mirage from a dusty lot, adopting her in secret after her mother's passing. He'd trained her eye, her instincts, but kept his wealth hushed, testing her through years of silence. She'd thought him a small-time hustler, not a tycoon. Now, with his death, he'd dealt her the house. She remembered Voss's latest jab, stick to guarding Harris, and anger flared. Her vigilance, mocked by him, was her strength. She clutched the will, resolve rising. Morning sun glinted off Vegas's glitter as Ebony rose, the will a chip in her hand. She'd face Voss, not as a guard, but as the boss. She called Golden Mirage under a fake name, confirming a management meeting tomorrow. Her play. She spent the day on shift, scanning the floor, but her mind plotted. Voss's cuts, her docked pay, her endless nights fueled her. She'd kept the casino safe, her unseen eye its shield, and now she'd claim it. As dusk fell, she paused by a slot machine, splashing water on her face. "For you, Lucky," she whispered. The game was hers now. That afternoon, Ebony checked the VIP logs, hoping to avoid Voss. No luck. He spotted her near the blackjack tables, his smirk instant. "Lost your way, Harris," he taunted, staff snickering as he waved her badge like a toy. "This ain't your game." Ebony stood firm, her voice low. "You'll see," he laughed, tossing the badge at her feet. "Keep dreaming, guard." She picked it up, the sting sharp but fleeting. Tomorrow she'd flip the table. Her bag held the will, a silent ace up her sleeve. The next day crawled as Ebony prepared. Her uniform swapped for a jacket, the will tucked tight. She patrolled one last shift, her eyes sharp amid the casino's chaos, but her mind raced. At Golden Mirage, the evening buzzed with Voss's swagger. Staff whispered of cuts, his latest squeeze. Ebony lingered outside, watching through glass as he strutted. She'd face him tonight, not as the guard he mocked, but as the owner. As the clock hit 8, she took a deep breath, stepping toward the door. Her moment's dice were about to roll. The meeting convened in Golden Mirage's lavish boardroom, gold accents gleaming under chandeliers overlooking Vegas. Richard Voss stood at the head, his suit pristine, pitching tighter rules to a tense crew, managers, pit bosses, clerks. "We squeeze the bottom line," he boasted, smirking at their nods. Ebony slipped in, unnoticed, her bag over her shoulder. She watched Voss mock her from afar, mimicking her stance to laughter. The room hummed with his plans to cut staff, oblivious to her presence. As he wrapped up, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through. "Not so fast." Heads turned, confusion shifting to sneers. Voss grinned. "What's this, Harris? Lost your post?" Ebony stood tall, pulling the will from her bag with unshaken calm. She unfolded it slowly, placing it on the marble table. "Read this," she said, her tone iron. Voss snatched it, his smirk fading as he scanned the text. Silence fell. The casino's hum, the only sound. "This says you own Golden Mirage." He choked, face whitening. "Frank Malone's heir." Ebony nodded. "His daughter." "It's mine." Gasps rippled. "Some new Lucky, a Vegas legend." Voss laughed. "Brittle. You? A guard. This is a bluff." Ebony crossed her arms. "Call your lawyers. It's real." Phones emerged, whispers escalating as the truth hit. Panic swept the room as calls flew to legal teams. Pasha's bravado cracked, his suit sagging against Ebony's resolve. His deputy, Carl, dialed frantically, sweat beading. A lawyer, Miss Lopez, arrived swiftly, her heels clicking sharply. She reviewed the will, then Frank's records, letters, a trust tied to Ebony. "It's legitimate," Lopez said, handing over proof. "Miss Harris owns Golden Mirage." Vasha's jaw dropped, the crew reeling. Ebony watched, her heart steady. Her bet was winning. Ebony stepped to the table's head, her voice rising. "Richard Voss, you're fired. Get out." He sputtered, red-faced, but she cut him off. "You mocked me, squeezed us dry. No more." Staff gasped. Some filming as Voss grabbed his coat, his exit a stumble. "Carl, you're gone too. Clear out." The deputy paled, slinking off. She turned to the room, her gaze steel. "Anyone with Voss, leave now." Silence held, then cheers broke, her first roll of power. With Voss gone, Ebony faced the stunned crew. "This isn't about greed," she said. "It's about fairness for us all." She outlined her vision. Better pay, fair games, a mirage for workers and players alike. A pit boss. Lena clapped first, others joining. Some filmed Hashguard Queen trending fast. Staff lingered in the hall, drawn by the shift. Ebony waved them in. "Watch us play," she said, handing Lopez the will to lock it down. She stayed late, sketching plans, new shifts, honest odds. The crew rallied, a house reborn. The next day, whispers of dissent surfaced. Two managers, Voss's cronies, grumbled about a guard running the show. Ebony called them out on the floor, her voice firm. "You're done," she said, firing them on the spot. They stormed off, threats trailing, but she stood tall. Lena stepped up, offering support. "We're with you." Ebony nodded, her resolve deepening. She hung Frank's photo in the lobby, her claim clear. The old deck was shuffling out. Ebony dove into reforms, meeting with Lena and a young dealer, Marco, to tweak operations. She raised wages, cut shady games, her eye-spotting fixes Voss ignored. Staff buzzed, drawn by the change, and Ebony invited them to weigh in. "This is us," she said, sharing her plans. Marco grinned. "This'll hit big." She worked late, her vision sharpening, a mirage for the grinders like her. Twitter flickered with rumors, her takeover spreading wide. Days later, Golden Mirage unveiled its new face. A grand reopening with fair tables, live music, a fresh vibe. Ebony took the floor, her voice cutting through, calm, triumphant. The crowd cheered, phones up, clips hitting Instagram, #Mirage, reborn trending. Revenue spiked overnight, her name glowing. Reporters swarmed, but Ebony kept it real. This is for the overlooked. She'd turned Voss's dump into treasure, her first win resounding. Voss didn't fade quietly. Rumors of a lawsuit swirled, his allies calling Ebony a fraud. She faced the press, unflinching. "Let him roll," she said, Lopez by her side with proof. Twitter split. Some cheered, others jeered, but her staff drowned the noise, touting the new Mirage. Lena and Marco stood firm, the casino a fortress. Ebony smiled. Voss's dice were cold. Weeks on, Golden Mirage pulsed with life. Ebony hired fresh talent Voss had ignored, her eye spotting grit. Profits soared, awards buzzing. She fired more old guard, promoting Lena to ops. Workers rising. Twitter crowned her #Mirage Queen. Clips of her takeover viral. She walked the floor, checking tables, her touch a lift. The empire she'd claimed now gleamed, a testament to what vigilance could build. One night, Ebony stood alone in the office, Frank's photo glowing beside her. She traced the frame, her path flashing. Mockery, grit, triumph. Voss had begged for a gig. Blacklisted, broke, but she'd hung up. Guests cheered her name, but she stayed grounded. "For you, Lucky," she whispered, his laugh echoing in her mind. She'd guarded her way here, shift by shift. Months later, Ebony stood by her office window. Vegas's skyline twinkling below. The casino thrummed. New games, fresh faces, a rhythm Voss never allowed. She'd kept Frank's dream alive, turning Golden Mirage into a haven for all. From a guard at the door to the queen of the Mirage, she'd proven her worth. As she watched the floor, Ebony smiled. The gambling world had dismissed her, but now they played her game, her casino, her rules, her legacy.